Well, it's such a shame that nobody is interested in vegetable gardening. Oh, there are a couple more seats back in the back if anybody would rather not stand. I think he's just trying to get some pretty girls to come sit real close to him. So anyway, it's certainly a pleasure. All the way up in the back. Hey, it worked. But
130, Bob.
there's still a couple more seats back up here. Okay. Certainly. Well, as usual, I get to start off asking you guys a couple of questions. How many of y'all this first seminar you've come to over here? Okay, wow, a lot of young people. How many of y'all it's the first time you've been in the nursery? Anybody? Well, very good. How many of y'all are planting your first vegetable garden? Anybody? Okay, so we've got some experienced gardeners, and well, you know, you never learn everything there is to know about this, and I will remind you that an expert gardener like myself, an expert's a person who's killed at least 1,000 plants. So I'll try to keep too many of y'all from becoming experts, since I will once again tell you a couple of our ground rules, since this is first time for a lot of y'all here. There is no such thing as a dumb question. If you think you have a dumb question, probably half the people here would like an answer to that question. But if you don't want to admit that it's your own question, you don't want to admit something going on in your own garden, what you say is, my neighbor couldn't come, but they wanted me to ask. And that gets you off the hook. Feel free to stop me anytime if anything I talk about is not clear to you. If it's something I'm going to talk about in a little more detail a little bit later, I'll put you off and we'll come back to it in a minute. If it's something that's appropriate, I'll happily answer it at the time. But so many things to talk about, and vegetable gardening is just so much fun. And anybody that's here because you think you're going to save money, well, you probably are not going to save money growing your own vegetables. But people are here because, well, you can grow healthier, better produce, you can grow things that taste better, you can grow things that you know have not been sprayed with toxic products, and plus it's a heck of a lot of fun growing stuff. And I do recommend that when you plan your garden, remember, no garden is ever big enough, but concentrate on things that you really enjoy. I'll never forget having a lady in here one time. I said, what's the main thing you're growing? She said, radishes. And I said, you really like radishes? And she says, no, I hate radishes. But they grow so well, I just can't resist growing. So, you know, the main thing is grow things that you really enjoy. And we'll spend a little bit of time talking about space requirements on different things. Some plants simply take up too much room to really be practical in the home garden. Anybody thinks you want to grow corn? I hope you've got at least half an acre for a garden, because it takes a lot of room to grow a few ears of corn. If you think you're going to grow watermelons, you may have heard I had the caller this morning that said, I've got all these vines and just a few melons. Well, hey, that's the way watermelons grow. You know, if you've got a limited space in your garden, concentrate on the things that produce the most and do the very, very best for you. And concentrate on things that you can't buy decent quality in the grocery store. And if it's your first garden, boy, there are a few things that you just really have to grow, because you'll just almost be so successful. You've got to grow some beans, you've got to grow some squash. I've had people tell me that the only time of year they lock their house is during squash season, because the neighbors will come and fill up the kitchen with zucchini if they leave the door unlocked. But I'm going to talk about growing a lot of different things today, and I guess I'll start out talking about soil preparation, because that's the secret to growing anything. And then we will talk about, you know, growing some different specific crops and different things that just a few hints, a few techniques that I've learned over the years have been extremely good. If you're going to grow good vegetables, you got to have good sunlight. If there's any question, if I ask you how much sun does your garden get and you hesitate, you know, you're not going to grow nearly as good a garden as you could. Full, hot, all-day sun. Everybody says, well, Texas sun's too hot for tomatoes, squash, peppers. The more sun you get, the more carbohydrates your plants can make, the sweeter they will be and the better they will grow. So there is really no such thing as too much sun. And if you're going to get the maximum amount of produce, especially for summertime vegetables, then you need to have pretty much all-day sun. Now, soil preparation, you need soil that drains well, you need soil that's high in organic material, and you need soil that has plenty of nutrients in it, plenty of fertility in the soil. I like to start early. In fact, I had my portions of my vegetable garden ready 6 or 8 weeks ago. Now we're right up on planting season, and you're not going to have quite as much time before it's time to get things in the ground. But given the opportunity, what I will do in January or early February, I will go out in the garden, and everywhere that I'm going to plant an individual plant, be it tomatoes or peppers or eggplant, those are the 3 main things I'll set out as plants, or anywhere that I'm going to grow something in one distinct spot, like squash. What I do is I'll pick that spot on the ground, I will go put a cup or 2 of fertilizer on top of the ground, and then I will cover it with compost. I'll make just a mound of compost, I'll make a little crater in the top of that, and every time I walk by that I legally can with a garden hose, I will fill it up with water. And I'll give it some time, because this gives the fertilizer time to really start breaking down into things that plants can absorb. The water carries all these wonderful things that come out of the compost, the humic acids, the microbial life carries down into the soil. And believe me, if you start early, even the hardest soil, once it's underneath the compost, is going to be extremely soft after just a few weeks of this treatment. Where I'm going to plant things in rows, like cucumbers or beans, or a little later in the season, okra, I will do basically the same thing, but I'll just do it in a long line instead of in individual mounds. I'll go along and make a visible line of fertilizer along the top of the soil. I'll go along and make a visible line of compost across the top of that, and then I'll put kind of a crevice in the top of it, and then I'll just go along and water and water and water. And you'll be amazed the condition that the soil's in when it is time to plant. Now, we're right on the cusp of being time to plant things like squash and beans and tomatoes and cucumbers. We're a little early for peppers and eggplant, but that doesn't mean wait until it's time to put your peppers and eggplant in the ground before you get the soil ready. Do what I'm suggesting and see what the results are when you plant this way. I literally tell people, when you stick stuff in the ground, jump back out of the way, because it may hit you in the face coming up. That's how fast it seems like things grow. Now, what kind of fertilizer? Good organic fertilizer, and I really don't care what the brand is. I'm very partial to this stuff. Medina, what they call their growing green, we just call it Medina granular organic fertilizer. That, by the way, is exactly the same thing we put on the grass, same thing put on the shrubs, same things I use around my fruit trees. It's just a good basic organic fertilizer. It is a poultry litter base. There are no biosolids in it. I do not like sewage sludge. We have to use the polite name of biosolids these days. But that's something I will never put in my vegetable garden, although some people choose to do that. But I like the Medina product because it's a good basic fertilizer. Plus, they put a lot of what we call micronized green sand in. Now, a good fertilizer is going to provide you with the nitrogen, the phosphorus, the potassium, and a lot of these so-called micronutrients. But there are some vegetables in particular that like extra iron and extra zinc, especially things like black-eyed peas, especially things like soybeans, if you're an edamame fan like I am, and some of the peppers. And that's why I like the extra iron that you get from green sand. And if you feel like your soil may be deficient in iron or zinc or any of these other micronutrients, you can even add some extra green sand, and you will buy that just as green sand. There's bound to be some around here. Oh yeah, right over here. The green sand is under your feet. This is a product that, again, is everything I'm going to talk about is 100% natural or organic. But the green sand over here it's taken out of lake beds and places where for literally millions of years, generation after generation of algae has grown, plated out on the sand in the bottom of the lake. It's just a great source of iron and zinc, and you don't want to use stuff like ironite. That stuff's toxic waste. But what Medina does, so when they put it in this bag, they grind it down to just as fine as dust, and of course that gives you so much more surface area, which simply means it acts a lot faster. Once your garden is growing well, you probably won't need to add much more of it. Now, if you're starting out with bare soil, and this is the first time you put anything into it, you may want to add some extra things. You may want to add some green sand. Lava sand is this product right here, and as the name implies, it's just fairly finely powdered, about the consistency of rock salt, of lava. You can also add zeolite. Zeolite, most kitty litters are basically